Welcome to the Exercise is Health podcast, where we're talking about exercise, health, and the interconnectedness of the two. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we will be coming to you every single week from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Exercise is Health podcast. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we are coming to you from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg in Schaumburg, Illinois. Now, at Muscle Activation Schaumburg, we believe your health is your most valuable asset. Your health is one of the biggest influencers of the quality and quantity of time that you have. And while there are many aspects of health, our expertise is exercise. Exercise has been proven time and again to not only improve your health, but also increase your longevity and improve your quality of life. But we know that exercise is not the only piece of the puzzle, and that is why we are bringing you a recording from a live event that we were both a part of with our local business association, the Schaumburg Business Association. And this event took place earlier in March, and it was a really fun panel discussion that I got to moderate and discuss with various professionals their expertise and how their area of expertise may influence employee burnout. See, employee burnout is a huge topic in the workplace and in the media. And while employee burnout may be largely psychological, there are many things that we can do within our daily lives to help improve and maintain our mental health and our mental emotional state overall. So we had a really nice, about 40-minute discussion with 4 other experts who discussed various topics from deep breathing and meditation to sleep and sleep apnea, nutrition, and then even how workplaces and office spaces are designed, and how when each of these is done well, it can help boost morale. But then the flip side is also true, where when each of these is not done well, it may start to degrade employee morale.
You know, Charlie, one of the things that I'm excited about sharing this conversation is that I think that when we arrive at work, our productivity or our ability to give, our ability to create is largely dependent on how we're feeling. And feeling not only just like our feelings, which that does play in like mental, emotional health, but also physical health. And I think these speakers really touch on a lot of those topics in terms of how are you feeling when you show up to work? I know at least with our profession, you know, we work with just exercise, and so many people feel like, wow, I have no time to exercise, but now that I'm exercising, I feel like I have so much more that I can do with my time. You know, so it's interesting because just by feeling better, they're able to give more to their families, give more to their work, give more to their jobs, their coworkers. So I think that brought up a really great point. And then I think the final panelist, which is talking about office design, really addresses, I think, in the big picture, just your environment and what kind of people, you know, are you surrounding yourself with, I think is a good thing to bring up with, are you surrounding yourself with healthy people, unhealthy people? What was that one saying? It's like, you're the sum of the 5 people you hang out with the most or something like that. So it's like, but it also reflects in your environment, I think. So there are some really interesting, cool treats in this topic, and I hope you guys enjoy.
Well, you're absolutely right, Julie. And I think one thing that we hear so often, like when I ride on an airplane, what do they say before every time before we take off is if those oxygen masks drop down, make sure you put yours on first before assisting others. And I think in our society, a lot of people have kind of lost that idea of, hey, you know what? I need to make sure that I'm my best self so I can give my best self to others. Mm-hmm. And so that means that at times I need to put myself first, my own self-care, my own well-being, my own mental, emotional, and physical well-being in order to make sure that I have my best to give to others. I know you and I have discussed, not on this podcast, but just with each other, the idea of kind of giving from your saucer plates, all right? The idea that if you have a teacup and, you know, think about making sure that teacup is filled and then give from what is the overflow of it. So giving from your saucer plate, but you got to make sure that you yourself are as close to your 100% as you can be, firing on all cylinders so you can give your best self to others. So you're absolutely right. So before we dive into this conversation, I want to take a second to not only thank the Schaumburg Business Association for organizing this event, but to also highlight Prism Healthcare, who sponsored the event and who helped provide the expert panelists for the event. Now, we had 4 expert panelists, and we led off with Beth Jansen. Beth Jansen is the president of Jansen Source Inc. and the wellness director for community physical therapy, in addition to being a mind-body health specialist for the Chopra Center for Wellbeing. She is an award-winning educator, journalist, and author, including her most recent book, The Book of Self-Care: Remedies for Healing Mind, Body, and Soul. She teaches highly experiential wellness workshops and seminars in medical, spa, corporate, and higher learning settings. Then we pass it over to Gennie Anderson. And Gennie Anderson is a respiratory therapy manager for Prism Healthcare Services. Gennie and her team of 7 respiratory therapists create a plan of care to educate and ensure therapy compliance goals are met for patients who have been diagnosed with obstructive sleep apnea and other respiratory obstruction diseases. Gennie has been a respiratory therapist for 40 years and uses continuous positive airway therapy to manage her sleep disturbance disorder. Then Melissa Donohoe spoke about nutrition. And Melissa Donohoe is a clinical nutrition manager for Prism Healthcare Services, where she manages a team of 10 registered dietitians. The team focuses on clinical oversight and wellness programs to improve health outcomes, helping people to improve their emotional health through healthier eating. And finally, we had Colleen Baader. Colleen Baader is a senior vice president and head of design at Reiki Office Interiors. Her personal philosophy is to use design to connect people to their environment, and this mantra infects her colleagues and her clients in the best way every single day. From 1995 to 2002, she was a designer at ROI. She then spent 10 years running her own design business, followed by a few years designing for Integra Health System. Finally, in 2014, she returned to ROI to launch and lead their design team. So one tactic that has been helpful for management of psychological stress and anxiety is the STOP method, which stands for stop, take a breath, observe what is happening inside and around you, and proceed with what you are doing. I invited each of our panelists to comment on how using the STOP method can be a useful tactic relative to their area of expertise to help all of us better manage our psychological stress and improve our well-being.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. Good morning, Schaumburg. What is happening in our world that is making burnout a trending topic? A Google search shows 86.5 million results on the topic of burnout. Burnout transcends all facets of life. However, the topic of burnout in the workplace is extremely important as it relates to work-life balance. How many people can relate to feeling behind on your tasks? Did you know 23% of employees report feeling burned out at work very often or always? With an additional 44% of employees reporting they feel burned out sometimes. This means roughly 2/3 of the workforce experiences some kind of burnout on a somewhat regular basis. Additionally, Harvard Business Review estimated that employee burnout costs between $125 and $190 billion annually in healthcare spending due to the links between burnout, type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol, heart disease, GI problems, and depression. Furthermore, employees who report feeling burnout very often or always, which is roughly 1 in 4, are 63% more likely to take a sick day and 2.6 times as likely to leave their current employer, creating a greater burden for those who are still on the job and may be experiencing lower levels of burnout. While burnout seems to be brought on largely by work environment and work interactions, as well as job duties and responsibilities, having employees who are physically and mentally healthier overall may allow them to better manage the daily stresses of work. Today, we want to present expert opinions on 4 different aspects of health, including breathing and stress management, sleep, nutrition, and environmental design, to provide insight and practical application for what employers can do to help promote the health and well-being of their employees and potentially reduce their risk for burnout. So Beth, let's kick it off with you. How can breathing help somebody better manage their stress, both acutely right now and chronically over time?
Good morning, everyone. Well, I teach 9 yoga classes a week, and the very first thing we start the yoga class with is breathing, because it is integral. It is the best medicine, feeling good physically, mentally, emotionally, and it's proven in evidence-based studies over and over again. And so yes, with the STOP method, which is an acronym from our fearless leader at the Chopra Center, Dr. Deepak Chopra, we stop during the day to kind of evaluate where we're at. Then we take a few deep breaths, or you can take 10 deep breaths, or you can take 5 minutes worth of deep breathing, and actually even make it a meditation, watching the gentle inflow and outflow of your breath. And then from there we go into observing what's going on in our body, because typically our issues are in our tissues. Our biography is our biology, so when we're very stressed, you can feel the tension, you can feel the constriction in the body and the mind. That's why they call them feelings. Our emotions are feelings, and you can feel them in the body. So we come into the body, feel what's going on, smile to all of those cells, and then move on into our next activity with loving kindness and compassion. I would love to take you through a very short breathing exercise, if that's okay with all of you. It'll help your digestion, your breakfast. So are you game? We'll do this rather quickly, but I'm going to ask you, just as in my yoga classes, to sit up nice and tall in your chair with your spine reasonably straight, your shoulders rolled down away from your ears, your head back over your shoulders so there's no weight on your delicate neck muscles. This is mountain pose in yoga, sitting long and strong through your spine like a mountain. So right now your nervous system housed in your spinal cord, including your brain, can effectively communicate through the rest of the body. And also notice the beautiful opening through the front of the body, the spaciousness in the front of the body that allows us to breathe properly. So let's begin. Take a breath in through the nostrils. Fill your lungs as widely and deeply as you can, bringing the oxygen down as far as you can into your lungs. You may feel your belly gently move out on the inhale, and then on the exhale, make certain that you fully exhale the breath all the way out of the body. Make the inhale as smooth, slow, gentle, and long as you can. Make the exhale as smooth, slow, gentle, and long as you can. The inhale is very energizing and nourishing for all of our body systems. The exhale, deeply relaxing and detoxifying for all of our body systems. So you can continue breathing while I just say a couple more points here, that when you're breathing this way, you're automatically moving out of stress mode into the parasympathetic nervous system, responsible for the relax, digest, and repair mode. So this is a very integral, important technique to use during the day. Stop, take a few deep breaths, observe what's going on in your body, and then move on into your next activity with loving kindness and compassion, not only towards yourself, but to those that you're working with. It's a collective feeling and emotion there. So there you have it.
That's awesome. Now, Mary Beth, what has been shown to be the influence of breathing on mental health, as well as productivity, focus, and creativity?
Well, in terms of mental health, there's a lot of very challenging things going on in your body as you are in full out burnout mode and on the continuum of stress. The most extreme stress would be burnout. Fight, flight, freeze. So when people are typically in burnout mode, they are frozen. They're deactivated in the mind and the body. And so when you are doing your deep breathing or using that as a mindfulness, a bridge to mindfulness to become more present to what's to become more present to what's going on in the body, you're automatically going to quell the release of stress hormones into your body. Stress hormones, when they're unregulated in your body, affect your body and your mind. When you are in full-out stress mode, you are creating anxiety, depression, insomnia. There are cognitive issues involved. Actually, I interviewed Dr. Dharma Sinch Khalsa, who is the president and founder of the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation, for an article I was working on. And he said he has never seen more young people coming in to work with him, ever younger, because of the effect that stress is having on their brain function. People are coming in with earlier and earlier forms of dementia. And so to come back to your question about focus and what's going on in the mind-body physiology, you are creating a definite change when you're utilizing your mindfulness technique and your deep breathing technique to quell stress. And of course, when you're focusing on your body, when you're focusing on your breathing, you're creating a neural disconnect with the stress that's going on in the mind. That's very important. And so automatically you're focusing. Focusing is present moment awareness. That's mindfulness. One of my mentors, John Kabat-Zinn, said it so beautifully, you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. And so for us to be able to become more productive, become more creative, we're talking about focusing, becoming more mindful, and then our creativity flows when we're more focused.
So this is something that's clearly useful for all of us as individuals to be able to implement these mindful breathing practices. But I'm curious, what can employers do to help promote mindfulness and mindful breathing practices within their employees?
Well, that's a very loaded question. You start by making a commitment in a company, whatever the size, to developing a wellness culture. Whether you have 5 people working there or whether you have 500 people working there, and there are people who are presently doing this. And so on site, bringing in wellness speakers, having perhaps a weekly wellness event for your employees or a quarterly wellness event for your employees, having a yoga instructor or someone come in to do a weekly seminar topic for your group. And to join an organization like perhaps the National Wellness Association is a very good idea. They have very good supportive materials from posters to online to their yearly conferences so that you can bring back this kind of information to your employees. In terms of the stop, of course, you can put little sticky notes around your office. You can put them in the break room. And interestingly enough, wellness rooms in the teaching profession are a big thing. I'm a teacher. So, teachers are burned out. And so there's this thing going around where they're creating wellness lounges where a teacher can maybe take a little retreat or sanctuary, go into this room where there's no fluorescent lighting, it's dim lighting, there's zero gravity recliner chairs, there's beautiful nature scenes on a big television on the wall, there's beautiful ambient background music, there's a little diffuser going with a bit of essential oils, and that's where the teacher can retreat for a little break between her hard working day. So that's an idea I think all of us could utilize.
I love it. Thank you very much. Well, Mary Beth, I really appreciate you sharing all that advice from a breathing perspective. I mean, clearly being able to not just do the physical act of breathing, but mindfully doing it has a tremendous impact over our overall health and well-being. And I think that's a really nice transition into Gennie, who's going to talk to us about sleep. So Gennie, what can employers do to make sure their employees are getting adequate sleep, both from a quality perspective and a quantity perspective?
So following in that same mindset of STOP, there's a questionnaire called the STOP Bang. And STOP Bang is an acronym for snoring, tired, observed pressure, body mass index, age, neck size, and gender. We have this questionnaire over on our table if you'd like to look at that further. And it's asking yourself these questions or asking your employees these questions. And if they come up either moderate or high risk, getting the services that are needed for them, like snoring, does their partner say they snore loudly, or do they feel sleepy or tired? And something that I do want to point out about this questionnaire is it says are you age older than 50. We see a lot of patients that aren't 50. We see a lot of the younger people coming in. We see, it's saying, is your gender male? We see a lot of females. So sleep doesn't just affect males mostly dominant. There's a lot of females that have sleep apnea. So, why is it important for the employer to get involved? It's important because it affects the health of that employee. They're less focused, they're more irritable, and they tend to not be as creative when they are affected by less quality sleep.
So one thing I see a lot, especially with different startups and things coming out of Silicon Valley, is this idea of just like sleeping less, and almost it's worn as a badge of honor. Sleeping 3 hours a night, sleeping 4.5 hours a night. But what can that level of sleep do for somebody's overall happiness levels, do for their psychological stress, as well as their creativity and focus and ability to interact well with others?
What the researchers have found is if somebody's not sleeping enough, it affects their memory level. So it's their short-term memory, not their long-term memory. I know people that I work with that have sleep apnea, the one thing that they'll tell me, and I know it was true with myself, I felt like I was walking in a fog all the time. And I thought I had early Alzheimer's, actually. And that went away when I got treated for my sleep apnea. So what will happen is their short-term memory is gone, and that's because they're not getting the quality of sleep that they need. They also will have greater chance of depression and anxiety, and the irritability is there. I set up a CPAP last week on a man that, one of the questions I always ask them is, how do you feel about this? Are you excited about it? Are you dreading? And he goes, no, I want it. And I was like, really? He said, what makes you want it? And he said, well, I had a coworker that he was really irritable and hard to be around, and he got a CPAP, he turned into a whole different person, and I'm hoping that's me. So it does a lot. It changes people when they get the sleep that they need. They're more likely to be focused and a more creative person once they're treated.
I mean, I can definitely attest to that. With an 11-month-old daughter, it's very obvious when she doesn't get the sleep that she needs. And I think adults are just better at maybe hiding it for the short term at least. So going back to this idea of STOP, you mentioned the stop bang assessment. And with the idea of stop, with the stop, take a deep breath, observe what's going around within you, and then proceed going forward, how can that methodology be applied to the idea of getting screened for sleep apnea and just sleep hygiene overall?
So if your partner is telling you that you're snoring and you do feel tired and you do fit this criteria, I would go to the physician, or I would mention those things that I'm feeling more tired, I'm not remembering things like I used to, I'm not sleeping as well as I used to, and could I do a sleep study? A lot of people, that sleep study is not something they want to do. When my doctor mentioned to me, I think you need to do a sleep study, I said, okay, but I'm not doing one in the lab, I want a home sleep study. And he wasn't one to do home sleep studies. He was like, oh, I don't know about that. And I said, that's the only way I'm going to do it. And so I did a home sleep study. It was easy for me. And so his thing was then, how am I going to treat you? I said, you're going to put me on an auto-PAP.
There you go.
An auto-PAP titrates itself, and I didn't have to go back in. I didn't have to go into the lab. So it was an easy transition for me. It was easy to treat. Easy to treat, and it prevents a lot of health problems in the long run. So as an employer, if you're an employer that has somebody that has sleep apnea, what you're going to do is pay a lot less costs in the future on that employee, because that puts them at lower risk for stroke, high blood pressure, depression, diabetes. It controls their diabetes a lot better. So they're a lot less risk for stroke and cardiac problems.
Jenny, thank you for sharing all that, because clearly being able to get adequate sleep and sufficient sleep is not just important for our overall, for our productivity and focus at work, but it's super important for our overall health and well-being. So just from a very human perspective, being able to sleep well is a really important thing. So thank you for sharing your expertise on that. Now, in addition to breathing well, in addition to being mindful about your breath, in addition to sleeping well, nutrition is also a very important part of overall health and well-being and can have a tremendous impact over somebody's psychology. So Melissa, how does poor nutrition impact somebody's ability to focus, problem solve, think creatively, and work with others?
It was funny because when I started looking at the information, there was actually a study that came out just this month in March that showed just from not eating breakfast, you had a 22% increase in developing cardiovascular disease, just from not eating breakfast. So it just shows that how important even just a breakfast meal can be. It really gets your metabolism going, it increases your energy, your brain needs energy, your brain needs that. So breakfast alone is a huge part of getting the day going and being productive. Another thing, maybe some of you have heard of it, it's the MIND diet. It's been around about 5 years. It's evidence-based. It's actually out of Rush. It is shown to increase memory, focus, it's for brain. It's a really, really great, I don't even want to use the word diet. It's more of a lifestyle. It's really easy to follow. It's flexible. It's really not about telling you what you shouldn't eat. It's more about telling you foods that you should eat. It's omega-3 fatty acids, trying to eat a little bit more fish, trying to eat more fruits and vegetables. The key is 5 a day. Sounds like a lot, but if you can, start with 3 or 4 a day, the goal is 5 times a day. Berries are shown to really have this antioxidant effect that helps your brain, and then green leafy vegetables at least a couple times a week. Another thing in the Mind diet is nuts. So you might hear a lot about nuts, but they have the omega-3s. So eating nuts 5 times a week is also part of the Mind diet. Another thing that's in the news a lot, I'm sure a lot of you have heard about, is the turmeric, which is a spice in cumin. There's a lot of studies and evidence to support that really, really plays a part in focus and mind and brain health. And then cutting down your meat. If you eat red meat, it's not saying that you can't, it's just trying to cut it down to 3 or 4 times a week.
Wonderful.
And there's handouts about the Mind diet also on the Prism table.
What about improving somebody's ability to tolerate stressors in their life, whether they be from work or otherwise?
Well, stress is a part of life, so you're not going to get rid of it. But good nutrition is a key to helping our body's ability to handle stress. So even with the STOP method, using the same approach that we've already talked about, stopping, taking a moment, taking a few deep breaths, realizing, okay, why am I eating that food, or why am I going through the drive-thru? Just observing, am I really hungry? Am I just feeling anxiety? Am I feeling stressed? And then proceeding. A lot of times just taking that moment, you can make better decisions with nutrition.
So then what can employers do to make sure that their employees are having access to adequate nutrition, as well as healthy nutrition is being promoted within the office?
That's a great question. I work in healthcare, so I see people eating at their desks in 5 minutes. So I think it sounds so basic, but just giving your employees time to eat, making sure they take their breaks, having a break room that's conducive with nice lighting where they can actually communicate. A lot of times, lunch break is the only time that we really get to de-stress and talk and just relax. And it can be a de-stressor if you have the right tools for a break room and for an adequate lunch break.
And then what about snack options that may be provided at work?
Well, I see a lot of vending machines, and they've come a long way. They replace some healthier snack items, but also with the beverage vending machines, I notice a lot of times they're still filled with pop sodas, so having other options in the vending machines, some water, some lower calorie items in the beverage.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. I know nutrition plays a huge part in our overall health, but to know the impact that it can have on our brain's function and our psychology as well is really important. So, Mary Beth and Melissa, you both mentioned the idea of having like a break room and office spaces that are designed for overall wellness. So I want to turn it over to Colleen and ask how can the design of an office impact the productivity and work performance?
That's a huge thing, huge trend right now, as you know, all the Google Office. But really the most important thing that we do in smart design is we analyze people's workflow in their office. It's not only about the materials you're putting in, more importantly, it's the workflow of how the teams work together. Typically what we'll do is we'll send out a survey to each department and we talk about which team works closely with another, do they use conference space a lot, do they have vendors that come in at meeting times, and then we take that information and we analyze where teams should be sitting. Typically, you're going to find that teams are in the wrong location, and that's normally due to just growth in a company and an open space. Okay, we're just going to put 2 more people over here, but not having the teams in the right spot really can bring down productivity of the office.
Okay, and so there has been a lot of press about how Google designs their offices, or how Facebook, or how these tech companies design their offices. So what are some more of the popular office designs that are leading to better communication within teams and better output from teams?
Right. So the big thing that we do is we design for movement. One of the biggest trends is sit-stand capability in workstations and in private offices. So we're implementing a lot of sit-stand desks in people's spaces. And in conjunction with that, you have to have locations throughout the office where your employees can get up and meet with people. So we do a lot of what we call breakaway spaces, and that's where someone can grab their laptop and go work in a private space if they're in an open cubicle and they really need some, heads down workspace, or if they want to collaborate with a team member, they can take their laptop and work at a space where they can work together. The other big thing that we're seeing, and I hear a lot about, with nutrition, is creating what we call it's like the water cooler on steroids. These are breakaway areas that have like coffee and filtered water and snacks and sometimes lounge furniture, but it's an area where your team members can kind of take a break from what they're working on. They know they need a break. They can go get some nice coffee, sit with a team member in a lounge chair, and just relax.
Awesome. So aside from an entire office redesign, what can employers easily do to make some changes within their current environment to help boost employee morale?
Yeah, so space is the biggest thing that we see when we walk in offices and they're like, well, I don't know how I can put in a coffee room, or I don't know how I can add these collaboration spaces. And the number one thing we see in this day and age is you have way too many files in your office. You can cut back on filing pretty easily and eliminate that, and then just add some standing collaboration space throughout the office so that people can meet with each other, or it can become where you put some fresh water out or coffee or healthy snacks. But it's a really easy way to fit in collaboration without, having our team come in and renovate your whole space. But it's an inexpensive way to do that.
Wonderful. I love those ideas. We're really big on movement in our office as well, so I can appreciate what you're saying. All right, so for those of you who are not aware, this discussion is actually being audio recorded and will be featured on an upcoming episode of the podcast my wife Julie and I host called Exercise is Health. It comes out every Wednesday, and you can subscribe to it on iTunes and listen to it there as well. So in the spirit of the Exercise is Health podcast, I'd like to wrap up with the question that we ask all of our guests when we interview them. And that is, Mary Beth, what is your definition of health?
At the Chopra Center, we talk about health being much more than the absence of illness, disease, or infirmity, but rather we talk about it being a beautiful state of wholeness between mind, body, spirit, and environment. And the environment's an important part of it because it's simply an extended part of our body. What's happening in the environment is happening within us. And so that is indeed our definition of, and of course, making certain to integrate wherever you possibly can self-care that includes the 5 pillars of wellness: meditation, aka mindfulness, and also sleep, definitely emotional regulation, nutrition, physical exercise. All of those are very important pillars to optimal health and well-being.
Wonderful. Jenny, what is your definition of health?
So I would say it was a good night of sleep. A physician told me, my physician told me years ago that nothing replaces sleep. If you don't get a good night of sleep, your body can't restore itself, and you can't recover from that.
I love it. Melissa, what is your definition of health?
I would say emotional and physical well-being, and also obviously being a dietitian, the healthy eating aspect is huge.
Fantastic. And Colleen, what is your definition of health?
So my definition of health is balance in life. I think we all need equal levels of family time, friend time, work time, and then time to yourself.
Awesome. A sincere thank you to each of our panelists for sharing your expertise with us today. Thank you to Prism Healthcare for putting this panel discussion on, to the Schaumburg Business Association for allowing me to moderate today's discussion, and for bringing the idea of turning it into a podcast to the table. If you enjoyed today's discussion and want to learn more about what you can do to improve your health, make sure to check out the display tables put on by Prism Healthcare as well as Community Physical Therapy. And definitely subscribe to the Exercise is Health podcast.
I hope this conversation has really changed the way you're viewing yourself in the workplace. And I hope that also this conversation can help really trigger some ideas in your brain to help you be the best version of you so that you're able to give and help our society grow. I think that's one thing that we always miss when we're thinking about work. A lot of times when we think about work, we're thinking it's a place to make money so I can go live my life. But also work is a place where we get to contribute to society. And so the more that we're able to do that, the more that we're able to be present in doing that, to give our creative selves, to give our productive selves, the more that we're able to help our fellow humans and progress our workplaces.
So who do you know that needs to hear this episode? Who do you know that is maybe struggling with some feelings of employee burnout, or is maybe an employer and wants to make sure that their employees don't experience employee burnout? Share this episode with them so they can learn about the various resources within the Schaumburg community, as well as other things that may be available within their own communities to help their employees feel and function their best. And while you're online, if you wouldn't mind, head on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and review. It helps people find us when they're looking for podcasts on exercise and when they're looking for podcasts on health. So if you found value in this conversation today, let us know by leaving us that rating and review. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. We always appreciate it. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week. And now, as an added bonus to this week's episode, Beth Jansen is going to perform a guided meditation for the next 5 minutes. If you're driving, make sure to either pull over or wait to do this at a later time. But if you're in a situation where you can sit back, relax, and close your eyes, feel free to do so and enjoy this guided meditation by Beth Jansen.
Welcome to this mindfulness meditation with Beth Jansen. This guided meditation will help you learn to simply be and to look within yourself with mindfulness and equanimity. Allow yourself to switch from the usual mode of doing to a mode of non-doing, of simply being. You are a human being after all, not a human doing. As you allow your body to become still, bring your attention to the fact that you are breathing. And become aware of the movement of your breath as it comes into your body and as it leaves your body, not manipulating the breath in any way or trying to change it. Simply being aware of it and of the feelings associated with breathing. Take a breath in now through the nostrils and fill your lungs as widely and deeply as you can, making the inhale as smooth, slow, gentle, and long as you can. Now fully release the breath out of your body. Make the exhale as smooth, slow, gentle, and long as you can. Feel the abdomen as it expands gently on the in-breath and as it falls back towards your spine on the out-breath. Feeling the coolness of the breath on the inhale, the warmth on the exhale. Being totally here in each moment with each breath. Not trying to do anything, not trying to get any place, but simply being with your breath. You will find that from time to time your mind will wander off into thoughts, fantasies, anticipations of the future or the past, worrying, memories, whatever. When you notice that your attention is no longer here and no longer with your breathing, and without judging yourself, bring your attention back to your breathing and ride the waves of your breathing, fully conscious of the duration of each breath from moment to moment. Every time you find your mind wandering off the breath, gently bringing it back to the present, back to the moment-to-moment observing of the flow of your breathing, using your breath to help you tune into a state of relaxed awareness and stillness. Now, as you observe your breathing, you may find from time to time that you are becoming aware of sensations in your body. As you maintain awareness of your breathing, see if it is possible to expand the field of your awareness so that it includes a sense of your body as a whole as you sit here, feeling your body from head to toe,
and becoming aware of all the sensations in your body. Being here with whatever feelings and sensations come up in any moment without judging them, without reacting to them. Just being fully here, fully aware of whatever you're experiencing. And again, whenever you notice that your mind has wandered off, just bringing it back to your breathing and your body as you sit here not going anywhere, not doing anything, just simply being, simply sitting, moment to moment, being fully present and fully with yourself. Now, as you sit here, once again, allowing the field of your awareness to expand, this time expanding your awareness to include thoughts as they move through your mind. So letting your breathing and the sense of your body be in the background and allowing the thinking process itself to be the focus of your awareness. And rather than following individual thoughts and getting involved in the content and going from one thought to the next, simply seeing each thought as it comes up in your mind as a thought and letting the thoughts just come and go like migrating birds or clouds floating by through the sky as you sit and dwell in this beautiful stillness, witnessing them and observing them. Whatever they are, just observing them as events in the field of your consciousness as they come into your awareness and they linger and as they dissolve. If you find yourself at any point drawn into this stream of thinking and you notice that you are no longer observing them, just coming back to observing them as events and using your breathing and the sense of your body to anchor you and stabilize you in the present moment. The thoughts can take any form, they can have any content, and they can be either neutral or very highly charged. If thoughts come up that have fear in them, then just be aware of fear being here and letting these thoughts come and go. The same for worries, preoccupations, and so on. Regardless of the feeling that a thought might create for you, just observing it as simply a thought and letting it be here without pursuing it or without rejecting it. Noticing that from moment to moment, new thoughts will come and go. Now, as this meditation begins to come to an end, you might give yourself credit for having spent this time nurturing yourself in such a deep, profound way by dwelling in this state of non-doing, in this state of being, for having intentionally made time for yourself to simply be who you are. And as you move back into your world, into your field of physical activity now, allow the benefits of this practice, this deep serenity, to expand into every aspect of your life. Namaste.